There's a fundamental lie that has been sold to you since the moment you were old enough to understand money. It is a lie carefully packaged by the education system, reinforced by the banking industry, and celebrated by your friends and family. The lie is that the ultimate goal of your financial life should be to reach the middle class. You are told to study hard, get a respectable degree, secure a safe salary of perhaps $80,000 or $100,000 a year, buy a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs with a 30-year mortgage, and drive a reliable financed car. You are told that if you follow this exact blueprint, you have won the game. But I am telling you right now, looking at the cold, ruthless mathematics of the global economy, the middle class is not a victory. The middle class is the most perfectly designed financial trap in the history of human civilization. It is a velvet-lined cage. When you are in absolute poverty, you are hungry, you are desperate, you know you are at the bottom, and that painful realization gives you a burning, undeniable motivation to escape. You are willing to take massive risks because you mathematically have absolutely nothing to lose. But the middle class is entirely different. The middle class provides just enough comfort to completely anesthetize your ambition. It gives you a steady drip of dopamine, a slightly nicer television, a 2-week vacation once a year, a title on your office door, just enough to make you absolutely terrified of losing it, but never enough to actually make you free. You become mathematically paralyzed. Let us deconstruct the architecture of this trap. If you want to understand why the middle class is permanently stuck, you have to look at the physics of their balance sheet. The entire system is built on the illusion of ownership, funded by the reality of debt. When a young couple finally saves up a small down payment and signs a 30-year mortgage for a beautiful suburban home, society applauds them. Their parents throw a party. They believe they have just acquired a massive asset, but let us look at the math like a ruthless capital allocator. That house is not an asset. It is a massive, highly illiquid liability that physically chains you to a specific geographic location and forces you to continuously generate highly taxed linear income just to service the interest payments. For the first 15 years of that 30-year mortgage, you are barely paying down the principal. You are handing over hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest directly to the banking system. You are paying property taxes, which are essentially rent paid to the government for the privilege of keeping the home you think you own. You are paying for a new roof, a new furnace, and endless maintenance. The banks understand the math. The government understands the math. They know that by putting you in that house, they have guaranteed your absolute obedience to the corporate labor market for the next 3 decades. You cannot take a risk. You cannot start a business. You cannot walk into your boss's office and quit because you have a legal obligation to feed the banking machine on the 1st of every single month. You have traded your ultimate financial freedom for a little bit of drywall and a nice lawn. This brings us to the most brutal mechanism of the middle-class trap, which I call the tax slaughter. The Global Tax Code is not a neutral document. It is a behavioral manipulation engine. The wealthy do not pay standard income taxes because they do not earn linear W-2 wages. They own assets, they borrow against those assets tax-free, and they use the legal corporate structure to completely shield their wealth. The poor do not pay significant income taxes because they simply do not earn enough money, and they receive government subsidies. So who funds the massive trillion-dollar machinery of the state? The middle class. If you are a high-earning professional, a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer making $200,000 a year, you are the absolute sweet spot for the tax collector. You are sheared like a sheep every single spring. Before that money even touches your bank account, the government extracts 30 to 40% of your labor. You are working from January until May entirely for the state. You are selling the finite, irreplaceable hours of your biological life to pay for a system that actively prevents you from accumulating permanent capital. The harder you work, the more overtime you take, the more aggressively you are penalized. You are trying to run a marathon while someone is continuously adding heavy rocks to your backpack. You cannot outwork a broken mathematical equation, And while the tax system is openly taking your money from the front, there is a silent, invisible thief robbing you from the back. That thief is inflation. The middle class is taught to be financially conservative. They are taught to save their money in a traditional bank account. But fiat currency is not a store of value. It is a melting block of ice. When central banks print trillions of dollars to fund government deficits, they are expanding the money supply, which mathematically dilutes the purchasing power of every single dollar sitting in your savings account. The middle class thinks they are being responsible by holding $50,000 in cash. But if inflation is running at 5%, 7%, or 10%, the system is quietly confiscating a massive percentage of their wealth every single year without ever passing a new tax law. The wealthy do not hold cash. Charlie Munger and I do not hoard paper currency. We hold productive assets. We hold equities in businesses that can raise their prices to match inflation. We hold real estate that generates cash flow. When inflation hits, the value of our assets mathematically skyrockets, and the real value of the debt we used to buy those assets plummets. Inflation is a wealth transfer mechanism. It transfers wealth directly from the terrified middle class who are hoarding melting fiat currency straight into the pockets of the capital allocators who own the actual physical machinery of the economy. But perhaps the most insidious part of the middle class trap is psychological. It is the disease of social validation. I have seen brilliant, highly capable people destroy their entire financial future simply because they were terrified of looking poor to their neighbors. We call this lifestyle creep, and it is the ultimate destroyer of cognitive bandwidth. When a middle-class worker gets a promotion, they do not take that extra capital and use it to buy their freedom. They instantly upgrade their lifestyle to match their new income. They lease a luxury German automobile. They buy expensive designer clothes. They send their children to wildly expensive private schools. They build a life with incredibly high operating costs. They look incredibly rich on the outside. They post beautiful photos on their social media accounts. But if you look at their actual liquidity, they are one missed paycheck away from total financial collapse. They are living in a high-class prison. They wake up every morning in a state of chronic, low-grade panic, knowing that they must continue to perform at a high level in a stressful corporate job just to keep the entire fragile illusion from shattering. This constant state of anxiety completely destroys their cognitive bandwidth. It drops their functional IQ. They are so mentally exhausted from trying to maintain their fake status that they have absolutely zero mental energy left to study capital markets, analyze real estate deals, or build a scalable business. They have voluntarily surrendered their intellect to the pursuit of vanity. If you want to break out of this perfectly engineered trap, you have to execute a radical, almost violent psychological shift. You have to stop playing the game by the rules designed by the people who want to exploit you. You must embrace the concept of strategic downward mobility. If you are currently making a high salary but you are drowning in lifestyle expenses, you must take a brutal machete to your budget. You must sell the luxury car and buy a reliable 10-year-old vehicle in cash. You must downsize your massive house and rent a smaller, cheaper apartment. You must completely ignore the strange looks and the whispered gossip of your friends and coworkers. They will think you have failed. They will think you have lost your job or gone crazy. Let them think whatever they want. Their applause does not pay your bills, and their judgment cannot stop your compounding machine. While they are paying massive interest on their depreciating liabilities, you will be hoarding raw capital. You will take that massive surplus of cash, and you will aggressively deploy it into income-producing assets. You will buy low-cost index funds. You will acquire small, profitable, boring businesses. You will build a fortress of absolute financial independence. You must understand that money is not a tool for buying things. Money is a tool for buying back your time, your autonomy, and your dignity. When you build a passive income stream that covers your basic survival needs, you achieve what physicists call escape velocity. The gravitational pull of the middle-class trap no longer applies to you. You can walk into your office, look your boss dead in the eye, and negotiate from a position of absolute, terrifying power. Because if you do not like the terms of the deal, you do not have to swallow your pride and accept it. You can simply turn around, walk out the door, and go sit in a quiet room with a book. That refusal power is the ultimate luxury in human existence. It is worth infinitely more than any luxury watch, any sports car, or any massive suburban house. To master this escape, you must learn to operate with the cold, emotionless logic of a machine. You must view every dollar that enters your hand not as something to be consumed, but as a soldier in your army. The middle class takes their soldiers and sends them to die in the shopping malls and the car dealerships. The capital allocator takes their soldiers and sends them out to conquer new territory and bring back prisoners of war in the form of dividends, interest, and capital gains. You must protect your army with the absolute discipline of a brilliant general. You must not swing at the bad pitches. You must ignore the frenzied panic of the stock market. You must tune out the macroeconomic noise on the financial television channels. Your only job is to quietly, relentlessly accumulate productive assets while living completely below your means. It takes a massive amount of psychological strength to live this way. It is a lonely path. You will not have the flashy toys to show off at the high school reunion. You will not get the immediate hit of dopamine that comes from mindless consumption. But you are playing a completely different game. You are playing the long game. The mathematics of compounding are slow and incredibly boring in the beginning. For the first 5 or 10 years, it will feel like you are making almost no progress. But if you have the discipline to stay on the path, if you refuse to interrupt the compounding process unnecessarily, the math will eventually go vertical. The snowball will become an avalanche, and when you reach your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s, you will look back at the people who chose the comfortable, middle-class illusion. You will see them still stressed, still carrying mortgages, still terrified of inflation, and still dependent on a system that views them as expendable. And you will be sitting in your quiet room, completely unbothered, utterly secure, and entirely free. The system was designed to keep you sedated. It was designed to keep you working. It was designed to keep you paying the ego tax until the day you die. But the door to the cage has always been unlocked. It is unlocked by the simple, ruthless application of mathematical logic and extreme emotional detachment. Stop chasing the middle-class dream. It is an illusion that leads to a lifetime of invisible servitude. Decide today that you will no longer trade your finite life for depreciating liabilities. Destroy your ego, build your fortress, and reclaim the absolute ownership of your destiny. That's all. Thanks for watching.